The Shadow Justice Secretary has spent 48 hours in and around Calais, looking at the North French coast, seeing the state of the migrant camps there, having bottles thrown at him, but also seeing the lack of police presence. What is being done with our money? Well, my name's Tom Harwood and this is GB News Originals. Remember to click that subscribe button to stay completely up to date. Now, the Shadow Justice Secretary has been long campaigning on the issue of migration towards the United Kingdom, both legal and illegal. But clearly one of the biggest problems facing this country is the lack of control that the government seems to have over the numbers who keep on coming. More than 50,000 since this government got into office, and more than 2,000 since the returns agreement with France has been operational. But there's a bigger question here too. Hundreds of millions of pounds of British taxpayers' money has been given to the French so that they patrol the beaches, so that they try to stop those migrants coming across the channel. They say they can only do it on land, they won't intervene in water, although a new treaty with the French has suggested that they will change the law to then go into shallow water at least. But is there much evidence that they have the willing or the opportunity to do so? And what is actually the impetus behind what the police in France are actually doing? Isn't life a lot easier for them if those illegal migrants leave French shores and head to Britain? Well, one of the remarkable things that Robert Jenrick found was just how little police presence there is, how few patrols there are, none that were seen, and how these camps run in a sort of lawless way, almost like completely untouchable ghettos across the North French coastline. But then what happens when you do call the police? When you see the migrants go and catch a bus carrying life jackets, clearly heading towards the coast to get on a small boat to break in to the United Kingdom? Well, Jenrick called the police, and the police didn't seem to suggest that they'd come along to do anything at all. Although perhaps surprisingly, something that was seen was litter pickers. Litter pickers who knew where to be to pick up the copious amounts of litter left by the migrants. So if the French can organise litter picking for their own coastline, but not police patrols, even when very obviously dozens of migrants are making the journey to get to a small boat, what exactly is the priority going on here? Well, I'm delighted to say that we sat down with the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, on GB News, and this is what he had to say. Now, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, has accused French police of failing to act after reporting dozens of migrants with life jackets preparing to cross the channel.
Yes, so in a video shared online by Robert Jenrick, he films his time visiting the migrant camps, where he's also attacked with glass bottles.
I've just spent 48 hours in northern France. I wanted to see what's going on up close.
We've been in and around this beach now for a couple of hours and we haven't seen any police presence. Zero, zilch.
It's just after 4 o'clock in the morning. We know that the migrants are just over there. At daybreak, we find the migrants have gone. We don't know where. There's still no sign.
Great spot of America.
Well, they're a flavour of the cinematic scenes that we've been treated to by the Shadow Justice Secretary, who I'm delighted to say joins us in the studio now. Robert, thanks for being with us.
Good to be here.
Firstly, what did you expect to see when you went out there to Calais?
Well, I've been following this issue for a long time, but even I was shocked by what I saw, in particular by the fact that the French, to whom we're giving £800 million a year and just given a state visit to their president, are basically aiding and abetting the migrants. I literally saw migrants walking down a highway holding life jackets. No one did anything. I saw them getting on a public bus. No one stops them. I mean, imagine if you're getting on the bus and 40 or 50 migrants holding life jackets got on. Not exactly subtle. I even saw police cars go past and look at them and didn't do anything. And then in the morning, at daybreak, at Dunkirk beach when I knew they were very likely heading to that beach or another one. I phoned the police in France because I thought, I've got to do something. I've got to stop these people getting into our country. And the French did absolutely nothing. The operator on the phone said, oh, that's terribly interesting. I'll pass it on. But to be honest, the police probably aren't going to come. That is what we're getting in return for the millions of pounds, the effort that Keir Starmer is supposedly doing to smash the gangs. I think it's a total disgrace. And we should not be relying on the kindness of strangers, on another country to secure our borders. We need our own deterrent. We need to be detaining and deporting each and every one of these people.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living. And maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Well, you try and find out where this money is going, and you can't really find out where this money is going, where it's being spent, who it's being spent by, and for what outcome. That information just isn't there for the public to see, Robert.
Well, I went to a migrant camp, probably the largest and most dangerous one, which Patrick Christie has reported for GB News from. No police presence whatsoever. It's a totally lawless space. It's dark, it's dangerous, people are getting stabbed, people are getting shot there. No French police whatsoever. I follow the migrants down the road onto a bus, walking through the centre of Dunkirk, a busy town, no police presence. I spent hours on the beach at Dunkirk, and in fact the night before at Gravelines, I didn't see a single police officer the whole time.
We're paying for nothing.
We're paying for absolutely nothing. The worst thing of all, though, is the French obviously know what's going on. Of course they know that the migrants are there with their life jackets. The migrants that I tracked for hours, they spent the night in a sort of hiding place in some woods by a cemetery close to the beach. After I'd given up trying to get the police to come to the beach, I went back to the hiding place about an hour after the migrants had left, and already the bin men from Dunkirk were there clearing up the detritus that the migrants had left. It was just another day to them. They obviously go there every morning, knowing exactly that the migrants will have been hidden there, expecting that, clear up the mess. But they can clear up the mess, but they can't clear out the migrants.
No arrests, but clean streets.
Perhaps we should charge the bin men with arresting the migrants. But this does perhaps get to a big problem of this. There are miles and miles and miles of coastline. Is it ever going to be reasonable to say that these people can be stopped on the beaches by the French? Should we just give up sending our money their way for these patrols, just given the stretch of that coastline? Even if, in the best will in the world, if the French were really keen to stop every single person there, they just wouldn't have the capacity.
No, I disagree, Tom. The French could stop this tomorrow if they wanted to, and I think my video has proven that. I went to a camp and I saw a gang marshalling migrants out and down the road. I followed them into Dunkirk. I saw them in their hiding hole. It is not that difficult to understand this problem. At the end of the day, you've got jumped up gangsters in a camp and you've got rubber dinghies. This is not such a uniquely difficult and challenging issue. But the point I think you do, the point you are right on, is that we should not be relying on the French to fix this. The French are never going to fix this. The French are using the UK as a dumping ground for illegal migrants that they don't want. We have to step up and take responsibility. And the tragedy of the present situation is that we know how to fix this. The answer has been clear to us for a long time. It's ultimately why I resigned from the cabinet. Change your laws, get out of these outdated international accords like the ECHR, and deport each and every one of these migrants. If we did that, this whole racket, the camps, the crime, the hotels, the billions of pounds, it could all be ended.
Robert Jenrick, why didn't the previous government, the Conservatives, nip this in the bud when they had the chance to? Talking now about removing ourselves from various conventions and the ECHR, etc., etc. A lot of people will agree with you, of course. But the charge is always there. Why wasn't this done previously?
Well, I share that frustration. That's why I chose to leave the last government, because I could see the answer to the problem.
But why couldn't you get that across, Robert, when there must have been many a person in the Conservative
There were
Party
many people who shared my view. In fact, when I went onto the backbenches, there was 60 Conservative MPs who supported me when I campaigned to strengthen, not scrap, the Rwanda policy. But look, we are where we are. What we've got to do now is try to fix this. In fact, it's beyond party politics. The impact of this on our country is immense. Look at the hotels, the harm that's causing. I'm worried as a father about the violence, particularly the sexual crimes that are being committed by some illegal migrants. What we've got to do now is fix this problem once and for all. And I think we know how to do that.
You wrote powerfully about how worried you are for your family, for your children, for your daughters. Radio 4 has a segment every morning. They call it Thought for the Day. It's a bit of preaching, usually from a religious perspective, to the general public. And yet earlier this week, they decided to preach that you were xenophobic in your comments. Now, the BBC have subsequently apologised for that. The version online has had the xenophobe accusation cut out. But what did you think when you first heard that?
Well, the accusation, the smear, was that anyone who is worried about the safety of their children because of illegal migrants coming into their communities and committing crimes is a racist, essentially. I think that's totally wrong. I think those people are just good parents. When I see the protests outside the hotels, and I've been to visit Fareham, I've been to Altrincham, I've been to Diss to speak to members of the public, I just see fair-minded, patriotic people who are worried about their communities being destroyed. And factually, that programme was also wrong, because there is a link between illegal migration and crime. We see that every day in some of these individuals who are being charged with sexual offences. There's been 2 individuals charged as a result of crimes committed by migrants at the hotel in Epping. And
of course, they deny the claims.
Well, they do, absolutely. These are allegations at this stage, but the allegations are mounting up just in the last 2 months. Think of the numbers of allegations that have come forward, of rapes, of attempted kidnappings. This is wrong. And I come to this from a very simple principle, that if I don't want this for my young girls, if I don't want these men hanging outside their school gates or in the playgrounds that they use, why should I force this on anybody else?
Does it bother you being called a xenophobe?
I'm used to. I am used to.
You've just gotten used to it.
I'm now used to people insulting me. I'm not going to be squeamish about raising these issues. I don't think any of us should be. I think a lot of people in Westminster and in our media elite are totally out of touch with the concerns of working people across this country, and it's on us. GB News is an amazing broadcaster in this respect. It's on us to raise those concerns on behalf of the public.
Is this something that you discussed with JD Vance earlier this week? Reportedly, you, a number of Conservative colleagues, notably not the leader of the Conservative Party, but some in the shadow cabinet and some in the backbenches, were meeting with JD Vance. What did you discuss?
Well, we had a good meeting. It was very kind of him to give us time whilst he was here on holiday. It wouldn't be fair for me to say what we discussed, but it was broadly what you would imagine. It was the situation in Ukraine, immigration, freedom of speech, the concerns about, for example, this definition that the Labour government is bringing forward around Islamophobia, and what's the future of the Conservative Party, and how can we work together to get a centre-right government after the next election. I was very impressed by JD Vance. I thought he was somebody of real intelligence who thought very deeply about the challenges facing our country.
Why do you think Kemi Badenoch wasn't there?
Well, she, I think, said that her diary just didn't align, but I think there was a statement put out by JD Vance's team to say that they did want to meet. So,
if you had a diary clash, I think she was on the Isle of Wight pulling ice creams, would you have prioritised the ice cream or the meeting with the Vice President?
Well, they've met before. She met with JD Vance, I think, just before Christmas in Washington. So they know each other well, and they worked together. In fact, when she was the Trade Secretary. So
would you have made that decision?
Well, she has a very busy diary. She's the leader of the opposition. She's met him a number of times, and as I understand, they've got a good working relationship.
Not quite an answer there.
Well, I can only go off the public record, and I think they just couldn't make it work. But as I understand it, they really wanted to meet. So I'm sure they will do in the future.
Okay. Robert Jenrick, thank you so much for coming in. Glad to see you safe on British soil.
Thank you very much for having me.
Shadow Justice Secretary. All these men off to Calais.
Absolutely. Well, who's next, I suppose, is the question mark. But the BBC did say in response to that slight scandal earlier in the week, whilst its reflection on fear in society from a faith perspective is broadly in line with expectations of thought for the day, some of the language it used went beyond that, and we apologise for its inclusion. That from the BBC.
Well, what do you make of that? What do you make of the trend of politicians heading across to the French coastline to see for themselves the state of the migrant crises, the new migrant jungles that are being erected, the tents upon tents, and quite frankly, superfluous amounts of litter that we see across that area too. Lots to be discussed, but is there enough of an impetus for the British government and perhaps most of all the French forces and security establishment, the French police, to actually do something about it, despite all the money that has been sent their way? Well, do get involved in the comments section down below. Let me know what you think. And remember to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel and even download our GB News app, one of the fastest growing news apps in both the Apple App Store and Google Play. Get all your news there, and I'll see you next time.